work in the Office of Student Services. They're involved with financial aid. This is something they see a lot of each day. So this is a sample bill for a student, and we're going to talk about how to kind of read what all of this means, because there's a lot of numbers and a lot of different categories on it. So
before you start reading the bill, does everyone know where to find their bill?
Good point.
It's in Agora, excuse me, and there is a section called My Bill. There are two, you can look at your recent bill, which would have been the last month. The bills are generated every month at the middle of the month. Or you could look at your current activities. My suggestion is to always look at current activities, because it's like a running balance of everything that's been happening on your student account, usually from your first deposit, or depending on when you are, but usually from the first deposit.
Oh, someone mentioned in the chat, you do need, I think you will need to, what's the word? You'll need to do two-factor authentication in order to access your bill. So that's something that if you don't already have set up, you can either use Duo, like they're mentioning, which is an application you could download on your phone, or you can have it call you, and it'll give you confirmation. So any questions on how to find your bill? So here we have an example of the bill. It's broken down into 4 different columns: the date of the transaction, so the date of when it's posted, the description of what exactly is the charge, the amount of the individual charge, and a running balance, meaning what it is at currently after when costs are added, what it's at, and then when payments are made, what it's at that point. So something to note is that the charges and credit payments in that category, if they have a parentheses around it, that means it's a payment or a credit. That means that money is being removed. If it does not have parentheses around it, that means it's a charge, and that means that a cost is being added. So as an example of that, on the first part, web payment, that's when someone makes a payment on the bill. So that was then they have a $500 credit. So the enrollment confirmation fee, most of you already probably saw this. What that essentially is a deposit that you make securing your place for the class, for the semester, for starting as a BC student. So it's just a deposit that's made for that. That one is relatively, I think, kind of simple. Then there's a student ID fee. So when you get a student ID card, either for the first time or if you need to get a replacement, there is a fee for that. As you can see, it's $45. So that is that fee right there. Now for one that actually gets a bit more complex, the campus health fee and health services, that is for the ability to access and use the Boston College Infirmary. That is separate from any kind of medical insurance, separate from any kind of health insurance. The Boston College Infirmary essentially acts as like a primary care provider. So if you have like any kind of general issues or something that might not be too serious, then you can go visit them. They can also offer referrals, but when you use off-campus services, then you're getting into the realm of health insurance. But the campus health fee essentially covers your ability to access the Boston College Infirmary. Any questions on that or any of the other fees we've talked about so far? So the student activity fee is a fee that you pay that goes towards all of the different programming that lots of these student organizations do. So as you can see, that's $600. That money is, if it's like how it was at my undergrad, that money is then given to the undergraduate student government, and then they distribute that to all the different organizations. But that's what that money is going to. Then there's the student orientation program. That is for the orientation. I imagine most of you have probably already done that at this point. That is a fee to participate in the orientation. And then now we get to what is most likely going to be the largest single fee, tuition. It can vary from school to school. This student, as you can see, is in CSOM. So they have a tuition charge of $28,390, at least at the point this bill was made. It might have gone up since then. Tuition is paying for your classes and the credits that you'll receive when you complete the classes. Those credits going towards your ability to graduate. Any questions on some of the ones we've just covered? Okay. So then you have the dorm fee. This is the fee that you pay for the residence hall that you're going to stay in. The meal plan, which we'll talk about meal plans in further detail at a later point. Meal plans are the ability to access the different food services that Boston College has. Residential dining bucks, which are part of the meal plan, but are usable at different locations. We'll talk about that later. And then you can see that the bill is having some changes here. So the student orientation program is refunded and then charged again. So that means the price must have gone up $10 for that. The dorm fee is changing because maybe the student is changing to a specific dorm. So they changed from the general dormitories to the Shaw House, it looks like. Now, you can see some payments are made and some credits are given. The first one is a freshman scholarship / grant from Boston College for $6,550. Grants are money that are given to you to use towards your education that you're not expected to pay back. They can be from the federal government, they can be from your university itself, or they can be from some kind of third-party group. Then you can see a web payment is made. So that means someone paid $29,226 through a payment. That seems like a lot to me to pay all at once. Many students will then, instead of making such a large payment, they will use loans. So you can see someone has a subsidized direct loan for $1,732. Marcia, do you think you can actually give a quick kind of overview of the different kind of loans that students might take out?
Mostly for undergrad loans, there's a subsidized loan, which means that the government pays the interest while you're in school. There's an unsubsidized loan, which just means that the government does not pay the interest on that one. It accrues beginning at disbursement. Mm-hmm. And there are other types of loans. It would be a Parent Plus loan if your parent was going to be taking out funds to help you pay for school, or a private loan. Those are usually from a different lender, like a Sallie Mae, or it could be your local bank or something like that. Just to note that your charges are always per semester for mm-hmm. everything that's on here. So you'll see that most of them were done in June. So they're charged about 2 months in advance for the next semester. Because you'll see at the bottom that the spring semester was charged in November. So yep. Shortly after you register for class for the next semester.
Yep, at the bottom they're being charged for the spring semester for tuition, the dorm fee, meal plan. And you can see on the bottom are anticipated charges and payments. Those are payments that have not, or in some cases charges as well, but usually payments from my experience that have not been processed yet, but they're expecting. So if you have student loans, for instance, that you're expecting to get, it'll show that as anticipated, and it might not have been released yet, but that's where that'll be shown. You can see that a student has a scholarship and a direct loan that they're anticipating for using to pay for the spring semester.
Just at the top of the bill, I'm just going to go over a couple things.
Sure.
You can notice that your amount due is A, so that's always at the top of your bill so that students will know. And when the due date is always right there with it. Your billing date, that is the date the statement comes out. So as I said, it comes out the middle of every month. And if you ever needed a copy of your bill, like a printed copy, you can download it to a PDF. And on the left-hand side, you can authorize a payer. So this means that, you know, if your parents or someone is going to be making payments on your student account, you would have to authorize them to be able to do that. They just can't go in and make a payment. They have to be authorized. So this is where you would do that. G is to view and pay your account so that you could look at different views of your account. Your transaction history, so you could see all the transactions. It would be a similar view to this. Direct deposit, if you had a credit at the end of any semester after your bill is paid, you can take the money back to use for living expenses or for school. Mm-hmm. And we do refunds. They're called a refund, and refunds are done by direct deposit, which you have to make sure you do sign up for in advance before you request your refund. And if you had a payment plan, this is where you could view information about your payment plan.
Do you think, can you actually give a bit of a description of how payment plans work?
Payment plans are generally set up over the summer. They're based on, if it's for somebody who wants to pay part of their tuition or their bill out of pocket, but they want to do it over time. So they have a payment plan for undergraduate students. They're generally done in the summer, and you would set it up, and it's divided over the academic year. So you would pay, you would figure out, like if you had a bill for $10,000 that you wanted to pay out of pocket, they would begin that, I think it's July, and then it would go until the end of the spring semester. And they would be equal payments every month so that you would be able to plan ahead.
Now, is there any kind of fee for using a payment plan?
That I do not know.
Okay.
There might be a small fee for that. I know there is for graduate students. I believe there might be for undergraduate students as well.
Yep, that's if you're interested in a payment plan, something that you would definitely want to talk with your financial aid advisor pretty much as soon as you can at this point.
Yes, that's true.
So this is a lot of information to take in. The bill can look pretty intimidating to read, but I hope that by breaking it down into explaining what everything is, it at least maybe makes a bit more sense. I've also included, for future reference, I'll share these slides with Hannah so she can share with you. In the slides, I have the descriptions included of what everything is.
Any questions about the bill?
Yeah.
I have a question.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So with regards to work study, is that supposed to show up as well, or how does that work?
Work study is not a payment. You have to actually work for it. So you would find a job on the student employment website, and then you would sign up. You would be interviewed and hired. You would receive a paycheck for that job. So it's not something that goes on your bill. You can use your work study funds. If you wanted to pay towards your bill, you can always do that, but you can also use them they're basically for living expenses. So, you know, like if you need books or, you know, just incidentals, toiletries, things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And also, if you have any other general kind of financial aid kind of questions, this would be a good time to ask as well.
So if you do have any more questions about your bill, feel free to call the student services line, the general line, 617-552-3300. Any of the service representatives will be able to help you with your bill.
I see, Marcia, we actually had a question come in on the group chat. The question was, can you pay with physical checks for the payment plan?
I believe that you can. I was hoping that Agnes was going to be here because she's one that deals with this all the time. And I believe that you can, but you would have to mail your payment to the college.
Yeah, Marcia works for the graduate student financial aid programs. So while they might be similar, there are some differences for grad students and undergrad.
But I can find out for sure. I'll ask, and then I'll send the information to Hannah.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions before we look at the meal plan portion? Okay. So in that case, then we're going to move on to the meal plan part of the presentation. Okay, so here is a list of all of the different meal plans that Boston College has. Have people already decided on what meal plan they are going to use?
I didn't decide. I think I was just given one.
Mm-hmm. So you are okay. So you're just kind of given one, and you. Okay, so this would probably be a good question for Agnes, but it might be that you're given the basic one by default, and you can potentially upgrade to some of these other ones.
It would be the resident dining halls?
Yeah. I believe all freshmen are required to have meal plans in addition to being required to live on campus, if I'm remembering that correctly. Probably they give you the residential meal plan by default. That would be my guess. This is something that if you wanted to look it up, this would be something where it would be listed on your fee bill of what meal plan you have. So, yep, it looks like someone's commenting in the chat that all first-year students automatically get the basic plan, and you can choose to upgrade on the Agora portal. Yep, the residential meal plan comes with $175 in dining bucks. Though that might potentially, where you can use those dining bucks might potentially look a bit different this year. So to give you an idea of what the meal plans are and what they cover, and what the upgrades might do, and if that might be something you're interested in. The residential meal plan, the basic meal plan, that offers $2,665, which you can use in all of those locations highlighted in the first column. So lower campus, the Loft, Lions Hall, Stewart Hall, Kearney's and Eagle's Nest are both very popular. And you can also, if there's like pop-up culinary events or a farmer's market, that could be used towards that as well. So for most of the dining halls that you'll go to, the residential meal plan will offer $2,665 you can use towards that. Any questions on that so far? Oh, look, unless anyone has any questions on what the residential meal plan is, we can talk about dining bucks.
Can we get this chart at some point?
Yeah, I'll send the PowerPoint slides out to Hannah, and then Hannah can share that with everyone. So you can have a copy of all the slides. And this is also available if you Google search Boston College meal plans. That's how I found this. Should be listed on their website too.
Thank you.
Yep. So the residential basic meal plan, which it sounds like most people have, also includes dining bucks. So those can be used at different locations, like the Chocolate Bar. It's a coffee shop. They also sell bagels, which I have bought quite a few from them. Hillside Cafe, Bean Counter, another coffee shop. Corcoran Commons Market, which is kind of like a convenience store. And you can also use it for concessions for when there are sports games. And you can also use it for the various vending machines across campus. So you would just swipe your Boston College ID and it would use money from the residential meal plan towards that. So the dining bucks can also be used at the normal dining halls. I imagine it probably uses the residential money first, and then after that runs out, it might use the dining bucks towards that. I imagine that's probably how it works. So the dining bucks essentially are for allowing you to use and access all these other different locations across campus. Now, of course, if you run out of dining bucks, you can also just use regular money towards all these locations as well. So any questions on dining bucks or anything we've talked about so far?
I have a question. So
Sure.
I see that for the residential, there's like some blank spots, but then like, for example, with maroon, there's checks. So what does that mean that it's not checked off? Like, can we not go there or what does it mean?
So for residential, it is a bit kind of confusing the way that they describe it. Residential means you're allotted $2,665 that you can use towards any of those checked locations, but you can't use it towards any of the unchecked locations. So that little pot of $2,665 cannot be used at the Chocolate Bar, for instance. But you do have a second separate pot of $175 that you could use at those restaurants if you wanted to. So like you're asking about what are the upgrades? The upgrades offer flex dollars, and pretty much what they mean by that is you can use those additional dollars anywhere. They don't really make a distinction of what they're used for. So you can see the maroon upgrade gives you an extra $880 that you can use towards either the dining halls or these dining bucks locations. And the gold upgrade gives you an additional $1,380 that you can use towards any of pretty much any location listed. So what the upgrades offer is additional dollars that you can use at any of these locations. They do make a distinction for the basic residential plan, though, that you can only use the $2,665 at some of the locations. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of a bit confusing the way they have it laid out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. So if you know that you might want to go to some of these restaurants a bit more, go to some of the dining halls a bit more, if you, we'll talk about like how to decide on what meal plan that you might want to use. But if you're leaning towards that you might want to have more money, you can potentially go for one of these upgrades. These upgrades do, the remaining money that you have does carry over from one semester to the next. So if you spend, let's say $2,000 in the first semester, you have $665 left over. That money is then added on top of the refilled amount for the next semester. So you would have $3,000 something. I can't really do that math in my head right now. So money does carry over from one semester to the next. So yeah, any questions on that?
It does not carry over from 1 year to the next.
Yes.
You do have to make sure you use up all of your dining or residential money at the end of every academic year. before
Yep.
the end of the academic year.
So if you have any money left over in May, go splurge and spend a couple $1,000s on dining food during that day. But yeah, any questions on any of this?
Question.
Oh, sure. I said we have two questions. What was your question first?
So the money for the meal plan, if you don't use it all at the end, you can't really use it for anything else, right? It's exclusively for food.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah. The question in the chat is also similar. Where does the money go if you don't use it all? At the end of the academic year, if you don't use it, then it's just gone. It doesn't carry over from one academic year to the next. So you'll want to be sure to spend whatever kind of money you have remaining. You'll want to be sure to spend all of that before the end of the academic year, because at that point it just is gone. All right, any other questions on this? We'll kind of talk about how to decide which meal plan you want, which one you want to use. So these are just some general kind of tips and suggestions. So if you're an athlete, meaning either you play on one of the BC sports teams or you're just someone that likes to exercise a lot, you might potentially want to be someone who eats more in order to kind of give yourself the energy you need to exercise. Or also if you just know you're someone that likes to eat more, that can also be another reason as well. So if you do think that for whatever reason you're going to be ordering more food, then you might want to choose a meal plan with more points. The inverse of that, if you're someone who skips meals or likes to sleep in, if that's the case, you might be fine with a lighter meal plan. So another thing to consider is there are only so many different dining halls at Boston College. Question I see in the chat: are we able to upgrade later on in the year? Marcia or Agnes, do you have an idea on that?
Yes, you can upgrade at any point in time.
Okay.
So say you had a residential meal plan or you had a flex plan, and in November you wanted to purchase another flex plan, you can go ahead and do that. You can also purchase 2 flex plans at the beginning of the semester. There are several different combinations of things that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Agnes,
sorry.
sorry. Someone else was also asking, where does the money go at the end of the academic year if they don't spend it all?
It's forfeited.
Mm.
So if you don't spend your money, it's forfeited. At the end of the academic year, students do creative things like they buy things that are not perishable. They share with friends who don't have meal plans. They, top up on stuff. But if you don't use it, it's forfeited.
You can also go get all the luxury kind of items, all the really expensive kind of stuff. Treat yourself for finals week in the spring. That's another way to get rid of it as well too. But since you are able to upgrade later on, it might be worthwhile to use just the basic plan to start, and that might be enough for you. Boston College does say that the basic plan is enough for most students. But if you find out that you need more, then you can choose to upgrade at that point.
Is the upgraded plan, is it prorated based on when you upgrade?
No, when you purchase a plan, you purchase a plan. So say, for example, you upgraded to a maroon plan, which is $800. You have to purchase the full $800. The university adds $80 to that, which they call bonus dollars. But you can't purchase, but you can purchase, there are various kinds of flex plans that you can purchase now, but the bonus dollars will be fewer. For example, if you purchase a $300 flex plan to upgrade, you would get 15 bonus dollars. But you cannot make up your own number. That you can't say, I want a $500 plan if there are no $500 plans available. So you can just purchase what is available. And I believe you can purchase, so they changed this recently, so I'm gonna try to draw on my memory. You can purchase something as small as $75, which you wouldn't get any extra for that. You can purchase $300, which you can get $15 for. $800 you can get $80 for, or $1,200, which you can get $180 extra on. So those are your choices.
Yeah, and something that I think is worth mentioning, and Agnes, you can please correct me if I'm saying something incorrect here. As far as I know, pretty much all of these locations also take cash or credit cards.
That's correct.
So if you just wanted to purchase, if it's the end of the semester and you're just going a little bit over, you can just use cash or credit cards. The potential downside there being you can't use a student loan for that necessarily, but that is an option as well.
That's correct.
Okay. So another reason potentially to go for a smaller plan is that, like I mentioned, there are only so many different locations here. So if you like to go out to restaurants, or you want to go to the grocery store and buy groceries, which could be potentially a more cost-effective way, then that might be a reason to go for the smaller plan as well. And as we mentioned, Boston College meal points do roll over to the next semester, but not to the next academic year. So some of the suggestions we have for saving on meal plans is to try to get to the grocery store. Generally, I would say in most cases, it's cheaper to purchase groceries and to make your meals that way than it is to actually eat on campus. So going to the grocery store and making your own meals can be a good way to save money. There are also, there are limits on what kind of appliances you can have. Like you can't have a full stovetop oven in the in the dorm. There are some appliances that you can use, such as mini fridges for groceries, microwaves. This is an area where I might want to ask if Agnes, do you know if there's any kind of, or actually for anyone involved with ResLife, do you know what kind of limitations there are for dorm room appliances? If anyone has any ideas?
They can't have anything that could start a fire. So you can have a microwave, but you can't have like a kettle or a little grill or something like that. It has to be something that's not going to be continuously hot. And ResLife will send out, either they have already or they will, hopefully in the next few weeks as folks are packing, they'll send out a list of what is and isn't acceptable. But in terms of like a microwave, even a toaster, I think usually should be okay.
Yeah. So that actually leads into, can we have a small coffee maker? Anna?
Unfortunately, you are not allowed to have coffee makers, but if you put some hot water in your microwave, get some instant coffee. It's not as bad as it sounds, I promise. But no coffee makers, not even Keurigs or anything like that.
And microwave water is also a nice way to make tea as well. So that's another way to get your caffeine.
Can I use things like a French press?
Nope, so a French press isn't allowed either. If you all would like, I can find our ResLife page that will let you know what sorts of appliances you can and can't have in that first year room, and that can help you think about what meals you could cook. If that would be useful, either someone pop it in the chat or I can send it out in our newsletter next week as you're preparing to come.
That does also lead into one of the points on the slides here. Some residence halls do have kitchen areas. We'll have to see what that looks like for social distancing, like how those might work. But some residence halls do have kitchen areas with different kinds of appliances there. Those are all acceptable to use in the dining hall. It might not necessarily be anything too fancy, but it can help if you're trying to prepare meals. And then also in the slides here, this is some, let's see, let me actually exit out to this. Can everyone still see the screen? This is a link which I'll actually post in the Zoom chat of some different kind of meals that you can make in your in your room, just using the things that are allowed, like nachos, microwave risotto, energy bars. Some of these don't even require appliances at all, oats. So that's something, there are some recipes there that you might be interested in. So before we move on from meal plans, any last questions on any of that? Oh, the only freshman dorm that has a kitchen is the Shaw Leadership House. Okay. So that might not be something that you can necessarily do your first year. I know Boston College really wants to encourage first year students to use the meal plan. But it sounds like there are some later year dorms that do have kitchens potentially. And also many Boston College students choose to live off campus in some of the later years, where you can have an apartment that has a kitchen, potentially a living room. Living off campus, in my opinion, is really nice. Potentially cheaper than living on campus too. So yeah, any last questions on meal plans? So then for the last part of the presentation, we're going to talk about planning. Sorry.
I was on mute and I was trying to talk, but
sorry.
Just before we get to planning for large purchases, I know sometimes people are concerned about like not running out of money before the end of the semester. And a good way to like budget that is to figure out how much you're spending. So like if you have a meal plan that's it's for like the 2665 for the fall semester, and you know that that's how much you have to spend for that semester, and each semester is about 14 weeks or so. So you could divide that up into the number of weeks that you're going to actually be in school. So that would let you know that how much money you have every week to spend. So sort of keeping track that way. If you know that you have like a particular meal that you like to eat, say in the morning for breakfast, you like, I don't know, bacon, eggs, toast, and juice. And that costs you, I don't know, $12 every morning. So you know that for the next, every morning, or maybe, we won't say every morning, maybe like 3 times a week, you like to have that. So that would be like $36 out of that week's money to spend for breakfast. And other days, maybe you want just cereal, or maybe you're just gonna have toast, maybe you're gonna skip it. So depending, like you might budget maybe $60 a week for breakfast. And then maybe for lunch, you want a little bit more, and maybe that'll cost you like maybe $10 a day for lunch or more. Maybe we'll say up to 15. So, you figure 15 times 7, or we'll say 5, just because maybe some days you might not. So that's like $75. So 60 and 75, that's 135. So if you take the 2665 and you divide it by 14 weeks, that gives you $190 a week to spend. So just trying to manage that per week. If you're going home, or certain weeks, or you're going away for a weekend, you'll try to like rebudget that money into some other weeks when you know that you're not going to be here. So that would be a good way to plan out how much you're going to spend and keep track of it that way. That way you'll know if you need to buy some extra flex plan money, or so that you can use for dining. Is that helpful for everyone? I hope. Anybody have questions about that kind of budgeting?
That's definitely a good way to break everything down to make sure you'll have enough.
Yes, Agnes?
I said that was very helpful, even for me.
Yeah, thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.
So to get into a bit of the planning for large purchases, I'm going to try to make sure we can get through this all in time. So when you make a large purchase, most of the time you don't necessarily want to pay the full amount up front. So you might take out a loan, what's called an installment loan. So loans are essentially money that you borrow from a bank usually, or a credit union, and that you'll repay. In an installment loan, there are monthly payments usually. Often they're fixed, sometimes they vary. We'll talk about that in a later slide. And that's over a set period of time, usually several years. So the example we're going to use to look at is purchasing a car. So you might purchase a car using an installment loan. So there are a couple of different types of installment loans, but so the way they're differentiated is based on the term collateral. Collateral is something that you own, such as maybe the car, and you give to the lender if you cannot repay the loan. So when you purchase a car using a loan, the lender, maybe the bank, holds on to the deed for the car. And once you finally pay that off, they will return it. They'll give that to you. But if you do not pay off the car for whatever reason, they can take the car. So a secured loan is where you offer this collateral to the bank if the loan is not paid back as agreed. Unsecured loan, there's no collateral. So some terms related to loans, annual percentage rate, APR. You might see that on your credit card reports, for example. That is an annual compound interest rate that you're charged for borrowing. So if you remember the compound interest rate formulas from back in, would that be Algebra 2, if I'm remembering correctly? It's been a while since I've been in high school, but the interest rate of, say, 20% means that your the amount of money that you have to repay is increased, compounds by 20% per year. So a fixed rate loan is when the interest rate is consistent over the loan duration. A variable rate loan means that the interest rate can change over the loan duration. Most of the time when you're buying a car, it's usually a fixed rate loan. So it's consistent over the duration of the loan. And then there might also be what's called a finance charge, which is a one-time fee that you pay for use of the loan. So that might be one, sorry, you look like you're gonna say something, Marcia?
And on variable interest rate loans, it varies by a determined time that the lender sets. So it could be monthly that your loan rate would change, could be quarterly, it could be annually. So it just depends on what the lender decides.
Hmm. So, and I recognize I'm going through this kind of quickly. I just want to be sure that we can get to everything before time is up. So the 4 C's of lending, as we call it, these are different ways to determine how a bank uses to determine how good it would be to loan you money. So the first C is capacity. So if you have existing loans and credit card debt, for instance, if you have a large amount of that, a bank might be less likely to want to loan you money. Versus if you have lower capacity, they'll be more comfortable loaning you money. Collateral, what can you put on the line? We described collateral in previous slides. Capital, so do you already have money that you can make a down payment? So when you're purchasing a car, if you can make a down payment, that'll make the lender feel more comfortable offering you a loan. And lastly, character. Do you make your monthly payments consistently? Do you not? Of course, if you do make them consistently, that'll make them feel more comfortable loaning you money. So when people use the term financing a car, that's essentially the same thing as getting a car loan. In this example, like we said, the car is the collateral. So if you fail to repay the loan, you return the car. The lender holds onto the car title, and the amount that you pay depends on the price of the car, the APR, and the length of the loan. I think we have an example on the next slide. Yeah. So, what kinds of large purchases do you have? Oh, that's Marcia. Okay. Okay. So we just use cars as an example because many people might be looking to purchase a car. There are other kinds of large purchases as well you can share with us. So if you're looking to purchase a car, you might have, say, $225 as a monthly payment, and you have 60 payments. So that's a 5-year loan, 5 times 12. So that means over the course of 5 years, you'll pay $13,500 in monthly payments. And you might have also paid a $2,500 down payment initially. And then there's also tax and registration fee. So what that means is the car ends up costing $16,500 $575. So usually you'll finance through a bank or credit union. If you're trying to figure out where to start for getting a loan, you can start within a bank or credit union that you already have an account with. So say you have a debit card with a bank, that's a good place to start. But definitely shop around because different banks might have better interest rates. They might have other better conditions. You can get pre-approval, which essentially is them giving you the terms of a loan that you would be approved for. Usually it's free and you're not required to accept the loan. So that way you can shop around and see what are the best options. So an activity that we recommend everyone does, I think we mentioned this in the last presentation, but I want to encourage everyone to do this as soon as they're finished with this presentation. There's an app called Credit Karma, which allows you to check your credit score. And the credit score is a number ranging from lower hundreds to, I believe, 850. Most people start at around 650. And that's a number that's used by lenders to calculate how desirable you are. That updates pretty frequently, often on a weekly basis, and you can check that as frequently as you like. And that is free to look at as well. All the stuff that we're suggesting is free.
The Credit Karma, also, because there's 3 different lending credit institutions, TransUnion, Experian, and oh gosh, the third one, but they all may have a different score for you. They're generally within a couple of points, but they all calculate things differently. And also too, not all of your creditors, like people you are using credit from, report to the same agency. So you may have one that's reporting to TransUnion, but not to Experian or Equifax. But you may have another that reports to Equifax and TransUnion, but not the other one. So that's why your scores may be up and down a little bit, but generally they're pretty close.
Yep. Now, similarly, but a bit different though, is your credit report. This you can access for free 3 times a year, though I think lately due to COVID, they're allowing you to access it more often. Is your credit report on annualcreditreport.com. So a credit report is not a number that's used by a lender to calculate how desirable you are, but what it is a list of all of your existing credit accounts. So that might show your student loans, that might show your credit cards that you have, the payment history, if you missed any payments and what payments you made, and other kinds of information. So this is important to check for the purposes of making sure that you're not falling victim to identity fraud. So that's a good way to look into that. And lastly, we mentioned emergency funds last time, but we're going to mention them again today because they really are very important. Not all of the large purchases that you make are planned. So when you graduate from Boston College and you have a secure income, we would recommend putting aside 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses into an emergency fund. So that might be rent, utilities, groceries, 3 to 6 months worth of that. And this is really important for in case you lose your job, for instance, or some kind of emergency comes up, like a car breakdown or repairs of various kind of appliances need to be done. It's incredibly important to have an emergency fund, and once you start, working and you have an income, that should be one of your first priorities. So I recognize I went through that last part a little bit quickly. I just wanted to be sure that I would finish it in time. So I want to give this remainder couple minutes that we have to answer any kind of questions that you have about this last portion or about anything that you've seen.
I have 2 questions that came up, Agnes, about the payment plan.
Okay.
One was, is there a fee for the undergraduate payment plan?
Yeah. If you're taking it for 1 semester, it's a $25 fee. And if you're taking it for 2 semesters, fall and spring is $45. $45. But there's no credit. You don't have to go through any credit checks or anything like that.
And then the second question was, for the payment plan, can people use a physical check to pay with that?
No, you must set up a what they call a payment profile, and the check. So it's drawing from your bank account on a monthly basis. You cannot just mail us a check and be in the payment plan. And I know a lot of people ask that question because they have 529 plans and their 529 agencies issue them a check, but they still want to be in the payment plan. We have not been successful in having 529 monies come through the payment plan because of the timing and all that kind of stuff. But if you can get it to work on your end, all we want is that the money is available to be drawn down on a monthly basis. Normally it's drawn down on the 5th of the month. If there's a holiday, that may go to the 6th or the 7th or weekend, but normally it's the 5th of the month.
So in the remaining few minutes we have, we can try to answer any other questions you might have.
I have a question about like payment plans. So is it possible, like for example, right now to just pay a certain amount out of pocket and then sort of plan after that? Or does it have to be just according to one plan?
Okay, so the way the plan works is in May, we start the plan. So your first payment is due in June, second, and so you're paying 5 payments for the fall and 5 payments for the spring. The system actually calculates how much money you owe for the fall separately and then how much money you owe for the spring. Although you're taking an annual plan, it does not divide the amounts equally. So if you do not start in June, say you started in July, you would have to still pay that first 20% of the fall amount in July and then the July amount. So if you went ahead, your question is if you like paid, say you paid $5,000 directly to your student account and then you wanted to be in a payment plan, it is possible, but the system is still going to, it's still going to, so let me put it this way. Sometimes I have to do that for some customers because they made an error and made a payment directly to their student account, and now they want to start a payment plan, and the system still will ask them for 20% down payment because they're running late, or 40% down payment, or 60% down payment. But if I recognize that you already paid that down payment directly to the student account, I will make the system understand that that has been done, but it has to be done on the back end. You couldn't do it yourself. Am I making sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So following up on that, like if I were to do that, do I have to contact you?
Yeah, you would have to contact the office and say, I already made a payment. Say I made $25,000 payment directly to my student account. I have $10,000 left that I want to split in a payment plan. Instead of letting the system take another 60% of your $5,000 that you have left, I will let the system understand that you already made a large lump sum payment to the student account, and ask it only to take a small, it has to take some amount. So I would say just take this small amount, but you would have to come through the office and have someone do that on our end. You could not do it yourself.
Would I be able to come into the office with a physical check for like a payment, like for like a month of the payment plan? Or is it only whatever like the electronic check that I put on the site? Or would I be able to bring it to you like physically?
No, you could not bring the physical check. It has to be drawn down from an account because it's not, the payment plan is done through a third party office. We work with Nelnet Business Systems. So we set up everything in the system. All the parents set up are authorized payers on the accounts, and they supply their banking information and Nelnet on the 5th of each month or on the 6th of each month will draw down from their banking account. So you couldn't come into the office and say, I'm paying for my payment plan, because the system is already set up to draw it from your banking account. And sometimes people
But
make that error, not as often now as before, but sometimes someone would have a payment plan set up and still go ahead and make a direct payment to the student account. And then what will happen that month is that the system that we are getting paid twice. You're paying twice into your payment plan, because you must. We don't have an option where you can bring us a physical check. But what you can do with that check is just put it on a checking account or a savings account, and then the system will draw it down. As long as you have the money, you just put it on the account and the system will draw it down.
But can I so I already have the payment plan set up, but it's on a bank account that we want to switch over from. It's gonna we want to use a different one later. Can we do that?
You
or does
can
it
do
have to be
that.
the same one? Okay.
You can do that. So you set up what was called a payment profile when you set up your banking account with the payment plan. All you need to do is to go into that payment profile, and you can call the office and one of us will walk you through what you need to do. But you just need to go back to that payment profile and make the changes there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other last questions? Okay, well, in that case then, thank you for coming to the presentation. If you have any later questions that come up, you can email us at success@bc.edu. And you can also contact your financial aid advisor as well too. They will be a good resource for answering questions that come up. And lastly, I shared the slides with Hannah, who can then share those with you later, so you can have a written copy of everything we talked about. But unless anyone has any last questions, thank you for having us for the presentation, and I'll pass it back to Hannah to close us out for today.